Imagine hearing someone call your name deep in the woods, but nobody's there. Hunters, campers, investigators from around the world have reported the voices coming from the darkness. Voices that sound human. Voices that sound familiar. And voices that may be leading people deeper into the woods for a reason. Welcome to the Deep Woods Paranormal Podcast. My name is Matt Harvey, and tonight we're diving into one of the creepiest paranormal phenomena reported around the world: voices in the woods. Across America and around the world, people continue reporting the same terrifying experiences. Hearing voices deep in the woods. Across America and around the world, people continue reporting the same terrifying experience. Hearing voices deep in the woods when nobody should be there. Campers hearing family members calling from the darkness. Hunters hearing conversations in empty woods. Investigators hearing whispers directly behind them, only to turn around and find nobody's there. Tonight we're diving into real encounters, ancient legends, physiological theories, and the chilling possibility that some forces may contain entities capable of imitation and manipulation. So we're going to talk about 5 talking points. Talking point 1, the worldwide phenomenon of voices in the woods. Talking point 2, Appalachian legends and mimic entities. Talking point 2, Appalachian legends and mimic entities. Talking point 3, real modern encounters from hunters, campers, and investigators. Talking point 4, scientific versus paranormal explanations. And talking point 5, the dark theory, or some force aware. All right, so let's start with the beginning here. Talking point 1, the worldwide phenomenon of voices in the woods. One of the most unsettling aspects of paranormal folklore is how consistent these stories are across different cultures and time periods. People from completely different regions describe hearing their names called, voices sounding identical to loved ones, whispers from empty woods, conversations nearby with nobody present, screams or cries deep in the forest, calls for help that disappear when approached. What makes this especially creepy is that many witnesses describe the same emotional reaction, and that's an overwhelming feeling of something is wrong. So that's crazy. Let's talk about that for a second. So yeah, I don't think I've ever heard voices in the woods. I've heard whispering, like chattering, but I contribute that to Bigfoot activity. And the witnesses that I've heard talk about this pretty much all say the same thing. I mean, different people from California, Texas, Appalachian mountains, and stuff like that. And we'll talk about where the phenomenon appears in a second. I've heard people talk about these things. I've heard them say, like that farmer I talk about all the time that was walking along the woods, and his family left to go into town, and he was actually walking along. He had a farm out in the woods, and he was walking along his property line out by where his where his corn was, and from the forest came his wife's voice, and she was calling him into the forest, and he was just terrified, and he didn't know what to do. And then he saw like a Bigfoot-like creature basically move behind a tree, and he ran inside and locked the doors. So I don't blame him. I would too. That's pretty damn creepy to have something, a big hairy monster from the woods basically calling your name. But there's other sources. Let's say there's other entities out there, like skinwalkers and stuff like that, that could possibly be doing this. I remember hearing a story about a hunter who had basically, he was like a sniper. I think he was an ex-military sniper. He had been all around the world and experienced many things and stuff like that. But he said this scared the living bejesus out of him. He was hunting one day, and he had a blind, and he was basically, he had a tree stand. And he basically goes up in the tree stand, and he had an open area all around him. And this one tree was just perfect for his tree stand. So he put it up, and he went up there, and he was looking around, and he was hog hunting, and nothing. It was eerily quiet. And he essentially sat up there for hours and hours. He had got there early in the morning, and then he hears a strange noise. And it didn't call his name or anything. It was just a strange scream. And so he basically got down from his tree stand and went to try and figure out where the scream was coming from. And then he heard, "Help, help me," and like a female cry. And he was like, "What the heck?" He's out in the middle of nowhere, right? He's miles from anything. And so he gets down and he goes walking away. He goes to explore the woods around where he was to see what's going on. And he said he turned around, and where his tree blind was, there was this really weird looking creature. It did not look human at all. It didn't look like a Bigfoot. Could have been a skinwalker. It could have been something else. But he said it was on all fours. It was pale white, had kind of like a human-like body, but it was very pale. And essentially he said it basically was sniffing around the tree where he was, like hunting him. And so he basically took off. He basically hightailed it back to his car and left. The creature basically walked away from where his tree stand was after a few minutes, but he had watched it for a while. But talk about creepy, something out there actually hunting, this guy. This guy's like a Rambo-like guy, right? He's out there with a sniper rifle and stuff like that. He's looking to hunt big wild boar. And even he got scared of it. So these phenomenons appear in Appalachian forest, Native American legends, Scandinavian forest myths, Japanese spirit forest stories, indigenous Canadian traditions, and modern camping and hunting experiences like we just talked about. So many stories warn to never follow the voice into the woods at night. But nowhere are these warnings more deeply rooted than Appalachian Mountains. In fact, I've heard the Appalachian Mountains right now are absolutely more than normal paranormal activity. Bigfoots are really active, possible dogman activity, all kinds of stuff going on out there. So let's talk about talking point 2, the Appalachian legends and mimic entities. Appalachian folklore is filled with warnings about strange entities and strange humans. Many mountain communities pass down rules like don't whistle at night, don't answer voices in the woods, don't investigate cries for help after dark. If something calls your name once, ignore it. If it calls twice, leave immediately. Stories often describe voices repeating phrases, sounds that seem close but never move, people hearing relatives who are nowhere nearby, entities trying to lure people away from campsites, and some legends connected to this phenomenon are spirits, shapeshifters, force entities, not deer. I don't know what a not deer is. Cryptid activity. So yeah, Bigfoot-like activity. You got shapeshifters up there, which we just talked about. Human spirits. Sometimes human spirits will call people into the woods. Maybe they got lost, or maybe they essentially died in the forest, and maybe they're seeking help. You got the other thing, the negative entities that possibly could be trying to lure people in and maybe cause them to get lost in the forest or worse. Shapeshifters possibly could be looking to do harm. And there's a lot of other entities in the forest that we don't know about yet. The more I hear from people about different types of entities they see in the forest, the creepier it gets. So, yeah, you just never know what's actually in the forest. Forest entities are basically the elementals, the spirits of the trees and the forest that basically protect the forest. And sometimes they're said to lure people into the forest to possibly, have them for dinner. Let's just put it that way, or worse, maybe turn them into one of them. Supposedly, you guys got to take this all with a grain of salt. Okay, so this is just theory at this point, but there's a lot of strange things that happen in the Appalachian Mountains. They are probably one of the most paranormal mountain range in the world, if you will. There's a lot of paranormal activity that happens around the world, but that place just seems to have just quite a bit of it. You got Bigfoot, you got Dogman, you got elementals, you got shapeshifters, you've got other things in that area that, and ghosts, of course, and stuff like that. They're all pretty creepy. And I believe that's a place where Bigfoot migrates through as well. And I don't think that sometimes when they're migrating through there, they don't really like people around where they live or where they move. So anyways, so deeper paranormal theories, they intimidate voices to gain trust. They manipulate fear responses. They confuse people to isolate environments. Psychological influence with witnesses. Basically you can compare it to haunted house voice phenomenons, where you get a disembodied voice, or maybe you catch an EVP. But if they're hearing it, that's more of a disembodied voice, usually caused by spirits. Again, we get EVPs, which are just electronic voice phenomenon, where you basically record audio and then you listen back and you listen for voices that don't belong in the conversation. Like if it's just two guys in a room and you get a female voice, and nobody else is in the house or whatever, or in the area, and there's no outside contamination, then you may have something. Or like if you get a spirit box or ghost box response, that's clear. Like if you're watching the video, this is the ghost box. So this basically goes through and pretty much does the same thing as a spirit box, but it does it better, in my opinion. Again, that's just my opinion. Some people hate these things, which I used to. But essentially, it just scans through radio frequencies, picks up EMF fluctuations, and also supposed to pick up on different temperature flux. And then, of course, there you got the negative haunts that mimic human voices to draw people into the forest, and who knows what they're going to do to them out there. Maybe people have done some negative things out in the forest in an area, and so now that area has a negative entity or a negative vibe to it, and or negative, almost like a negative residual energy left there, and that energy or entity is trying to draw those people in to try and capture them as well and pull them into that negativity, if you will. So what makes this even stranger is that modern witnesses are still reporting these encounters today up in the Appalachian Mountains. It's gotten a lot worse up there. I know there's a lot more Bigfoot sightings. I don't know about the ghosts and stuff like that. If you live in the Appalachian Mountains or you've been to the Appalachian Mountains recently, I would love to talk to you. Whether you come on the podcast or not, I'd love to still hear from you. Feel free to comment down below. Maybe you live in an area where there's woods and you've experienced this. Guys, feel free to comment down below. I'd love to hear your experiences, because the more experiences we get and the more stories we hear, the more stronger this case gets for these things, right? And if you're a skeptic, I welcome you guys to comment too. Please be polite, but just, tell us what your thoughts are, because we need to look at both sides of that coin, right? We need to look at both sides of the coin. We can't just say everything's paranormal. We have to go through and rule out other things to make sure that we have nothing left that people can debunk. So it's very, very important that we do that. Talking point 3, real modern encounters from hunters, campers, and investigators. Hunters hearing their names in remote forest. Campers hearing children laughing outside their tents. Hikers hearing conversations nearby. Investigators capturing whispers or on recordings. People hearing cries for help that vanish. The most common reported detail: the voice is often soft, emotional, and familiar. Interesting. So witnesses report hearing spouses, parents, children, and friends, even when they know those people aren't nearby. So that's really strange that they hear all this stuff. That could be a mimic, or it could be negative. It could also be maybe the Bigfoot-like creatures or something else trying to get their attention. What is this? Why is this happening? Is it for attention? Is it to try and draw people in to hurt them in some way, or get them lost in the woods? Is it negative? Are these entities trying to draw these people in because maybe they got lost in the woods, and maybe they are just, it's like a residual type thing where they want the person that is around to experience what they experienced. Like I said, is it negative? Is something trying to hurt them? It's just really strange that this is happening. I mean, I've been through many, many woods. Black Star Canyon, yeah, I was drawn out of a couple of places that I probably shouldn't have been, but it wasn't by voices. It was more like by, you should go here, you should go there. It was almost like a instinct, but I never actually heard any audio like this. So I've only heard about this. I've actually never experienced it in my 30 plus years of doing this. So it's really interesting that this is happening, and it's happening more and more. So, when I'm out here investigating in the woods in Texas, I'll have to keep my ears open for listening for voices and stuff. So let's talk about behavioral patterns. Sudden silence beforehand, the feeling of dread, electronics malfunctioning, losing track of time, strange movement, or peripheral vision, like something out of the corner of your eye, footsteps matching, walking pace, like something's walking with you. I have experienced that. I've experienced strange movement in my peripheral vision. Losing lack of time, I've never experienced. Electronic malfunction, I've had that happen a lot. The feeling of dread, yes, I've experienced that. And the sudden silence beforehand. Almost I wonder if part of this might be maybe UFO involved. I almost wonder if there's some kind of alien-like beings that are out in the woods that maybe are manipulating people's thoughts and drawing them into them to basically kidnap them, take them and do whatever horrible things they're going to do to them on their ships. Don't really want to bring the UFO stuff into this, but it has to be talked about. I mean, it's strange. It makes you wonder. People say, "Oh, well, Bigfoots are from other planets, or they're from other dimensions, or whatever they're trying to draw us into their dimensions." Again, these are all good questions. I don't know the answer to this, but it's interesting to talk about it. And I've experienced a lot of these things: sudden silence, feeling of dread, electronic malfunction. Yes, we've had that happen. We've had batteries drain, camera batteries drain, K2 meters drain, other gear just drain right before we've had some kind of encounter with either Bigfoot or ghosts. Never really had any UFO sightings or anything in the woods. I've had a lot of UFO sightings, but I've never had anything in the woods. Strange movement. Again, I would attribute that to Bigfoot. And then footsteps matching walking pace. That's definitely happened to me before. That's pretty creepy when that happens. So, of course, skeptics argue there may be scientific explanations for these experiences. So let's talk about that. That's talking point 4, scientific versus paranormal explanations. So again, we got, like I said, that other side of the coin. We got to talk about both. Okay, we can't have all this be all paranormal. So basically, auditory pareidolia. I just meant totally butchered that. Isolation physiology, fear amplification, environmental sounds distortion, infrasound, which could be Bigfoot related, animal vocalizations, and stress responses. So, yes, I agree with all these. Auditory, basically that just means your brain gets confused. Basically, it thinks it's hearing one thing, but it might be hearing something else. Isolation, when you're isolated out in the woods and you're looking around and everything looks the same, definitely your brain starts to race a little bit. So you definitely could be thinking you're hearing something or feeling something. Again, this goes in with fear, environmental sound distortion, animal vocalizations and stress response. All this can go into like the same category. I mean, it's all fits together. Infrasound, that's what predators usually make, like a lion or other animals like that. They use infrasound to basically stun their prey. It's just a very low vocal sound that they use to basically scream out. And what it does is it basically makes the animal freeze or the person freeze for a split second, and that gives the predator more time to pounce, if you will. I mean, it's real easy to think you're hearing one thing and then listen back to the audio, either on your video camera or your audio recorder, and you're reacting to something, but then you listen back and you're like, wait, it's either not there, or the camera or the audio recorder doesn't hear it, or the sound you think you're hearing is not really what you're hearing. It sounds completely different on audio or on the video camera audio. And you're like, okay, what the heck? What was I, why was I reacting that way to that? A friend of mine, when we went to Joe's camp, we kept hearing some strange noises. And a friend of mine, this is why I have friends that are hunters, and I try and get in with animal experts and stuff, because one of the noises we heard up there, it sounded like a Bigfoot call. And so we were reacting to it as if it was a Bigfoot. And when he watched the video, he basically told me, no, Matt, that's a deer. And I'm like, I've never heard a deer make that sound before. So, yeah, I mean, we mistook what we thought was a Bigfoot to be a deer. It was actually a deer. So it's real easy to think that basically you're hearing one thing, but you're actually hearing something else. Your brain is like, oh no, it was that. It was that. No, but actually when you go back to listen to it later, you go, oh crap, it wasn't that. It was something else. So yeah, like I said, that's part of the reason we document what we do, is to make sure that 100% what we think we experienced is what we actually experienced. You got to be really careful about what you call paranormal, because a lot of stuff can be explained away. I would say about 85 to 90% of what you experience, because most of the time can be basically explained away. Fear does get to you. You're out in a pitch black forest, you can't see anything around you, and you're hearing all these noises, and then something snaps a tree branch, and then, that could be anything. It could be a deer, it could be almost anything out there. Deers break tree branches all the time. And you're like, it's a Bigfoot. But no, it's actually a deer. And if you don't have a visual of that, you can't verify that. But your brain's going, okay, there's something there. And so the cackles on the back of your neck are going up, and your brain's, like on high alert. And so then after that, things sound differently. They're distorted. So you got to be careful about what you claim to be Bigfoot or another animal, dog man or anything else. You got to be really careful about that. So, I think, like I said, about 80 to 90% of what people are hearing out in the woods can be explained away. You just got to be, like I said, you got to be really careful about what you claim to be Bigfoot or other paranormal activity, especially out in the woods. I think I heard a screaming woman. Well, it could have been a barn owl. It could have been anything. It could have been a lot of other things. If you don't have it on audio or video, and these days, there's almost no excuse to not have be able to catch stuff on audio or video. Everybody has on their phones has a video camera and or an audio recorder or a camera. So we should be able to document these things these days. So let's get into paranormal theories. We're going to compare paranormal possibilities. So sometimes these things are actually like, this is other 5 to 10% of the time. Intelligent hauntings. Sometimes there are things in the woods. Sometimes there are intelligent hauntings. Interdimensional phenomenon. There are spirit entities. There's cryptid intelligence. There's environmental paranormal hotspots. Why do so many reports share identical details across different countries and decades? That's why the mystery deepens. And that leads me to one final and deeply unsettling theory, which is talking point 5, the dark theory. Are some forests aware? And we talked about this on the last podcast, but we're going to dive deeper into this. We're going to explore the idea that certain locations may influence emotions, create paranoia, trigger fear responses, affect perceptions, and contain recurring unexplained phenomena. So what we're going to discuss is disappearances, strange sounds, missing time, UFO sightings, Bigfoot encounters, shadowy figures. So basically, all this basically ties into that 10% of basically what's been going on with paranormal activity. So let's talk about why forests are aware. So, yes, I mean, there's a lot of disappearances that happen around the world. People go into the forest and then just disappear. I mean, Japan is one of the best known places for this, the forest in Japan. I don't know the exact name of it. There's a lot of cases out here in Texas, Oregon, Washington. People go hiking. They are walking in the woods. They have kids with them, whatever. And the kids get a little bit ahead. They go around the corner. Parents get around that corner, and the kid's gone. And they do search and rescue, never to find the person. People go hiking, whatever. People just disappear. And they never find any gear. They never find any trace of them, right? They just disappear. No forest. I'm sorry, there's no fires. Or they basically may have settled down to make a fire, or they don't find shelters for these people. It's just really strange how these people keep disappearing in the same places over and over and over again. So this is very common, actually. I don't remember how many exactly people go missing here, but I think it's in the thousands, at least in the United States. Texas is very famous for it. There's a lot of places in the forest where people just disappear for no reason. Nobody ever hears from them again. People hear strange sounds in the forest out there. Joe's Forest, Joe's Camp, in the Sabine National Forest. You got the Daniel Boone National Forest. You got Sam Houston National Forest. All these Texas forests seem to be full of strange sounds. People do disappear in them, but I can see why. I mean, it's so vast and so sparse. There's nobody around most of the time. And when you do find a settlement, it's very, people don't go onto those settlements. They just leave them alone. But I mean, I could go hiking in the woods for days and days and days and never see anybody out there if I wanted to, out by Joe's Camp, or even in the forests anywhere pretty much out in East Texas. You can just disappear real easy. Strange sounds. Lots of strange sounds in those woods. I mean, we've heard strange things. I mean, we've documented strange things in the Sam Houston National Forest. Whatever that was that walked up behind us, the eye shine. Black Star Canyon, same thing. I put a camera in the back of the car and then backed up to that spot on purpose. And while I was back there, a man came walking around the corner. You just see the eye shine. And that was probably at least 8 feet tall, whatever it was behind us. Because I'm 6'2", and it was about my height with the slope down below us. It was at least 2 or 3 feet below us. And so, yeah, I mean, very strange. strange sounds happening out there. We documented some things. The wood knocks, the screams, the howls, the whoops. Those are not normal for the woods. And the fact that it goes just dead silent. And you're looking around, you're like, okay, what is going on? And nothing. There's nothing. There's nothing around. Bastrop too. Bastrop, we had that same thing happen. California, Black Star Canyon. You'd be walking, you hear the crickets and all the other white noise that was out there, and just nothing. But you might hear like something walking around you. You might hear giggling and stuff like that, which I think was ghosts and stuff like that. Missing time. I gotta believe that has to do with possible UFOs or maybe something deeper. I don't want to talk about Big Brother, but maybe something's going on with that, right? People going missing in the woods could be Big Brother. They do go out there and do training exercises. Maybe people walk in on their exercises and get mistaken for something and get taken out. People maybe being messed with. Maybe they basically are doing something to them mentally, so they don't remember the exercise, right? Maybe they walked in and saw something they weren't supposed to see. UFO sightings. There's a lot of UFO sightings, especially around Dogman, Bigfoot, and haunted locations, especially in the woods. I've never seen anything in the wood, but Joe sent me a video once of something strange lights outside of his camper. And his windows were black, and you could see the flashes coming through the black. It was the craziest thing. It was almost like lightning, or somebody was spotlighting his window with a very, very bright light. And there's just a lot of strange cryptid sightings of what looks like grays in the wilderness, out in different forests in the woods, not just in the United States, but all over the world. People report seeing alien-like creatures. Anything from the 3 or 4 foot, aliens to the big tall ones, the 7-8 feet ones. And, with the big weird looking head, the giant eyes and stuff like that. They're seeing them in the forest. They're seeing UFOs flying over and scanning the forest. Who knows what they're looking for? Are they abducting Bigfoots or Dogman or both? Who knows? But then, of course, you got the Bigfoot encounters and you got the Dogman encounters, where people are basically having experiences with Bigfoots. I don't know too much about Dogman, but I do know that they're very aggressive, and that could explain, the missing people as well. The 411 encounters. Maybe the Dogman are taking people. Maybe the Bigfoot are taking people. Who knows? I've heard that rogue Bigfoots, if they're by themselves, can be very aggressive, and they do more than just throw rocks at people and break branches and stuff like that. I've heard that they can and do attack people or chase people out of their areas. So maybe they're having a Bigfoot encounter. And of course, you've got the shadowy figures, which could be, again, interdimensional people. It could be people crossing in and out of dimensions. It could be, dark entities. It could be interdimensional beings. It could be a human spirit that maybe when they're crossing through into our realm or our dimension, maybe their full form is not shown. Maybe they're, like we see us as us, and maybe they're just not being able to show themselves as as a human. Or maybe they just have that shadowy figure because we're just catching a quick glimpse of them. Who knows? But, what shadow figures are 100%. But they could be a lot of things. So, yeah, there's a lot of strange paranormal activity that happens out in the wilderness. So I got a question for you guys. What if the voices are not random? What if something is intentionally interacting with people in isolated wilderness areas? And what if generations of folklore were actually warnings, not stories? The next time you're in the deep woods and you hear someone calling your name, maybe think twice before answering, because whatever's out there might already might already know exactly who you are. Thanks for listening to the Deep Woods Paranormal Podcast. I'm Matt Harvey, and until next time, stay curious, stay cautious, and keep searching for the truth. And I will catch you guys on the next one.